Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm the co-founder and creative director at Dribbble.
Hi, I'm James, and I'm the designer at Wireframe Design Studio and clerk.
With the whole Figma updates and everything like that, what do you think in terms of them moving into the whole Figma sites thing? Because my initial reaction to that was, the perceived value of something sometimes when it just does one thing and does it really, really well, that's more attractive for people to use as it's a segregated kind of product.
Yeah.
But when you start trying to become like an everything kind of thing, your value proposition changes, right? So Figma has been very much, the industry leading software for us designers or UX designers for what, 5-6 years.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably close to that, right? So them kind of treading on the toes of, like I said, like a Webflow framer. Does that change them as an entire product and like the value they bring? Because does it appeal just to UX designers still, or?
I think it's interesting when obviously the Adobe thing fell through, because I think it almost kind of forced Figma to kind of say, right, okay, what did designers want from the Figma app, you know? And like you've seen so much thing, like me personally, I've seen like so much conversation around like Figma, what they should add, what they should remove, what they should have on the app, you know? But again, to your point, I think like I think they're almost catering to not only designers now. It's like there's a lot of kind of graphic design elements been added with the Figma draw stuff. You can like quite easily, you know, obviously design brushes, and I think that's like obviously a big part of it now as well. And they've got the texture thing. Have you seen that as well?
It's in the texture.
Yeah, so it's like you can, if you draw like a path or a stroke, you can like add a texture to that stroke now, which is quite cool. Like you never used to have that. You never used to be able to have that much control over like certain paths or strokes now, but now you can with like texture and like obviously progressive blur and things like that. So I think like I've seen like a lot of people speak about this on Twitter as well, where they have kind of mentioned after the updates, it was just like such a good update for designers. Like it was just like they listened to everybody, you know?
That's my initial reaction to what you just said, right? Because it's great for the designers, but obviously Figma has spent a lot of time and money into trying to appeal to people that are even just trying to launch their own product, or even the development side, or bridging the gap between design and development.
Yeah.
So if this kind of round of updates is catered towards design, I kind of question how that kind of translates into moving to development, or how development focused that is, because like I said, even the progressive blur stuff we was just talking about, like how does that work?
Yeah.
Like, or the textures on strokes, how does that translate into CSS?
Yeah.
See,
it's interesting. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but I know what you're saying. I think like, I think from like a kind of design engineer perspective, there's like the gap is closing now. You know, it's like,
this is what we spoke about, right?
Yeah, we spoke about this before, but I think like it's such an interesting kind of time right now, because like the barrier of entry to becoming a designer or an engineer or both is just so low now. You can just like get access to, like, obviously now with Figma sites, it's like I can launch a website now. I don't have any development experience, you know, or engineering experience. So like that barrier of entry to like kind of launch websites now is like going to be interesting. Obviously Framer, I think at the moment do like, I've like my portfolios with Framer, so like,
oh, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, so I tried to like use, I mean, I don't think I'm confident enough to like design an entire like company website in Framer yet, but it is interesting. Like, I think they really nailed that kind of bridge between like design and development, like, you know, like using things like grids and things like that. Like, and I think like a lot of their UI is kind of based around like, what do you call that? Is it Flexbox and things like that? So so like it's kind of like almost like the design version of that, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously their kind of take on like auto layout, where you basically just design the desktop version, hit the plus button, add breakpoint, and it just like magically kind of, you know what I mean? And
and if I was Framer, I'd be a bit concerned, right? Or would you?
No, I don't think so, because I think Framer have got like that ad, like how long has Framer been doing that.
Well, Framer's changed as a product. I remember when it used to be a
they've
prototype
pivoted
tool.
massively. Yeah, definitely. They've pivoted like quite a lot, but I think they finally found that niche.
Yeah.
Where obviously they obviously added the templates. Like people could sell templates, you know, like the template marketplace.
It's big for the
which is really
market,
cool.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it just like showed how powerful Framer was from that perspective. Do you know what I mean?
But if Figma are moving into the kind of like no need to write a line of code, kind of this codeless kind of no code approach.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of people designing Figma move over to Framer.
Yep.
So surely Figma are capturing a lot of that market. If
Of course.
Figma launch with Figma, that's what I was saying. If you're a Figma like Framer, even you're going to be a little bit like, oh, okay, well, what can we do to facilitate? So they might probably need to market closer to designers if they don't already. But they do though, right? They are quite designer centric.
I think you'll probably know in the next 6 months like how that is affected. You know how much Framer's affected by that. Whether Figma kind of roll out more features, because I know obviously Framer will probably release even more features in terms of, because I seen someone actually tweeting about the animation stuff in Framer. It's just so much better.
Yeah, because they've got Framer Motion, don't they?
Framer Motion. Yeah. They've just got so much more like animation related stuff that just kind of makes like web pages look more interesting or whatever. So be interesting to see how Figma catch up with that, you know.
There's all these kind of like botched ways of how you can kind of try and represent to a developer what you're trying to animate and do. But that kind of, again, goes back to the point of the design engineer, why it's so important, that kind of line of communication.
Yeah.
And the need for developers having a, again, moving away from the no code stuff, why it's so important for developers to have a design acumen. Because the big issue you see at the moment is you'll be a developer, then you have a designer. But then a developer who doesn't appreciate design diminishes the attention to detail the designer brings, right? So
I think you're right. Like the engineers that I've worked with personally, obviously I work with Brad at Clerk, like who's one of the best. I think like he's not just an amazing engineer, but he has that design kind of knack, you know, like where he can, you know, I sometimes don't even have to like explain what I'm trying to do from a design perspective. He can just like take it and go, right, I know how this can like animate. You know, he's got that like design taste.
Is that the design taste, or he's worked with designers before, or do you think there's a requirement?
I just think he's got like he's obviously worked with other designers, and he's worked with myself, and he's worked with other engineers that maybe have that kind of design know-how, but he's just picked that up, and I don't know, like I just think like it's interesting. You don't get that a lot with engineers. It's like they can build stuff, but when it comes to that, like adding that extra kind of taste and that kind of extra kind of flair to like a design, it's just like sometimes, like I said, I don't even have to like explain it. He can just do it. And the same with the boy Alex as well, Alex Kraskov. Like he's another one. Like you can just
allow on kind of the initiative.
Yeah, you kind of give like a footprint of like how that design should animate, but at the same time, like they have to build it in a certain way. It looks good and the timing's right, and you know.
But that's kind of an evolution I'm seeing on like even the front end developer side, right? Because again, the need for a design kind of acumen and that whole new term. I don't know how long it will stick as a term, but design engineer. Yeah. Right. And for me, that is it's a really, really important one. Again, just that translation between design and dev, but yeah, I don't know how long again that will stick, or the requirements of a front end developer will change. Do you know what I mean? To become what we associate as a design engineer. Yeah. You know?
I mean, yeah, I think I've always kind of like I've looked up to like designers in the past, like do you know Roger King? He works at Figma.
Yeah.
So he's been about since back in the Dribbble days.
I'm going to pronounce it. Is it Rogie?
Roger, I think it is. Roger King.
We'll ask him.
So obviously he's such a good designer, but he doesn't just design like websites. Like I always remember back in the Dribbble days, like early Dribbble days, he would design websites, but he would also like be an illustrator as well. But then he would code his actual websites too. So he's like someone like, and I think that's very rare where you've got like that design know-how, and you've got that taste for like, you've got that really good design taste, but at the same time you can actually build your own stuff as well.
Yeah.
I just think I don't know, I just think like my brain just would collapse if I tried to like try and build stuff.
You said Dribbble days. That's funny you say Dribbble days.
I know, because I mean it's not really.
Go on.
I think that I mean, I've damaged their kind of reputation, haven't they, over the last like few months of
they got a new CEO, right?
Yeah.
And at the start it was like, we're bringing Dribbble back, right? And the initial kind of things that we saw for the community were really, really good. And then you just kind of see this movement towards like add to your services, your service page, your service cards, what you charge for each deliverable,
which seems like the right
direction to go,
of course.
But then when people, after a period of time, people were kind of suckered up in that. You see that kind of this step in the direction of like monopolization a little bit of like, right, once we've got people reliant on this, they've got a following of X amount of people. People, when you win work through Dribbble now, you have to stay within Dribbble as part of their policy. And it's a bit like, okay, well, I understand it from a business point of view, but in terms of the actual design community and like
I would hate to, I would never say a bad thing about Dribbble, because that's where like the very beginning days of like Dribbble, like early user, you know, like that's where a lot of the projects I got was from Dribbble.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my work came from early days Dribbble.
Yeah.
And then from there, obviously moved to like Twitter, X, started sharing work on there as well. And I feel like Dribbble almost helped me build my Twitter following as well.
Oh, really? That way around?
Definitely, like 100%. Like,
so people would find you on Dribbble. See on Dribbble,
because I would share and I mean, I don't know why I did this, but maybe a lot of people did this as well. But I would always like in the comment section, like you could just like describe what the project or whatever it is you shared. But I would always just like add my Twitter account, so like people would just follow then on there as well. But yeah, I mean, I like I said, I wouldn't ever kind of diss Dribbble, you know, because I feel like it's a core part of like.
So like where you are, and even myself as well. What kind of the work we've got from it as well.
Yeah.
And actually, one of our largest clients actually came from Dribbble. And yeah, exactly from that. But it's just, is it a product itself? It's just the direction they're going in. I just kind of was like, okay, that's a shift that kind of raises a few eyebrows.
Interesting kind of move. Like I say, I mean, I still share on Dribbble, not as often as I used to, but I think they will. I think that I read somewhere they still make like $40 million a year or something.
Dribbble.
Yeah. Yeah, it's still crazy, like the revenue they make just from like pro subscriptions and stuff like that. Yeah, and like obviously they've got like the what do you call it? Like basically where you would go in and like hire a designer and stuff like that, like the marketplace.
But going back to the social stuff with sharing stuff online, because I know we spoke about it before. In terms of the importance, because it's quite there's a lot of like oversaturated things of people oversharing sometimes. But like, what's your perspective on the importance of us designers being able to share our work? How important is it to not only getting work but being part and becoming part of the design community?
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing for me. Like, I think it all goes back to like Dribbble. That was like the first time, apart from like obviously way back in the day when I would be on like design forums or whatever. I don't know if you were on Talk Freelance at all.
I wasn't, no.
No, so there was this forum called Talk Freelance, and that's where I would just share my work and you would get your feedback. It would be like unsolicited feedback, but it was like encouraged, you know. But I think that's where Dribbble kind of took it to a new level, because they then added that aspect of you can get paid for sharing this work. So if you just share your work and somebody likes that, they'll hire you for it. So I don't know. I think like as a designer, it's obviously the most important thing. Obviously, everybody's different. You know, I think people sometimes are a bit scared to share their work because they maybe think it's not good enough, or they maybe don't think like, you know, it's like good in their eyes. But I feel like you're only going to get better by encouraging that feedback and getting other people's feedback and other people's opinions. And that can be, you can go macro with that. Like, you know, people will obviously comment if you're posting like a website design or whatever. You know, people will comment on the typography. People talk about the colours, whatever. You know, all that feedback. It's just what you do with that feedback. Whether you whether you
Comes
kind of
down to
take it on.
the right kind of character, though, right? Because
Yeah,
if you need to be in the right kind of mindset to be able to know how to take that feedback, what to take,
of
and also
course.
what to ignore.
That's what I think is the
Yeah,
hardest part.
yeah,
Like, that's definitely the hardest part, especially if you're kind of starting early on in your career and you're not kind of used to like sharing your work or your, you know. I think that's like the biggest kind of hurdle to kind of overcome is like, you know, what are people going to say? You know, like what's the worst that somebody could say? You know, like you just, I don't know, like I
you don't
just,
like it, move on.
yeah.
Kind of thing, right?
Or you take that on board and you maybe look at their work, and if they've got work of like a good standard, you know,
Or
like,
if they don't,
or if they don't, yeah, I mean, you just take it how it is.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think like definitely, I think it's important. I think it's like one of the most important things. Like, been doing it now for years. You know, I think like I still do it. I still share my work.
But it comes across, and the thing I've noticed about it is, even especially with the people with the kind of the larger side of the following, it's just natural. It's not like you're not. It's very clear who's got an intent, who's trying to gain like interaction,
Yeah.
or trying to encourage comments. You know, like
Yeah.
comment this and you can get this. That kind of, I don't know what they called it. Is it like kind of engagement harvesting or something like that?
I mean,
right?
in Twitter now, all the algorithm stuff, it's like, it's just so noisy. You know, you've probably noticed it yourself, but it's like,
playing the algorithm, isn't it?
You're playing the algorithm. Like, I actually read a Twitter thread yesterday or the other day, and it was like I think some guy was just basically saying like he'll post like a design, but then he'll say how much that design cost, like how much a client paid him for that work, you know, and the reason why he does that is because like he gets so much more engagement for seeing that dollar amount. You know, it's like almost as if Twitter push.
It's like a Mr. Beast thumbnail kind
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah, exactly. It's like, but I don't know. It's like, I think you can then come off as a bit, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a fine line because, like, you get, again, what we spoke about before in terms of these different, how people kind of want to be perceived online, how they sell themselves. They sell themselves as just as a multidisciplinary kind of designer, or I work with company X, or I run a design subscription service, or it's a deliverable based thing, like a landing page cost X. You can have it custom built, developed on Figma, Webflow, whatever, right? So people being upfront about their costing. I know the studies actually show if you are upfront, like people know what they're going to pay for something, it's obviously going to convert way better because the transparency is there.
Yeah.
But a lot of the times people don't actually know what they actually need. That's what I find anyway. So even though it may encourage kind of less leads, if people think they're getting something for X amount, but they don't actually know they need it or don't need that, they need something else, all of a sudden they associate with what you're consulting them, what they actually need to be associated with that same cost. Then you get into this whole kind of cycle of, oh, I thought it was, so it's kind of like what kind of like work you want to be doing. So it's tricky, but people being upfront about pricing online, I think internationally, I think people are really intrigued about what people actually charge, and it's that kind of that thing of like, can you speak about money? How much I actually charge people? How much we charge
taboo
people?
subject.
Yeah. So I think having the kind of the
of course
cojones to actually
of course
say,
like that transparency is good, definitely. I think like you kind of take it with a pinch of salt as well, because like I'm just speaking from like what I see on Twitter, and the design Twitter is like very, it's like this bubble, and like you're only seeing that part of it. But yeah, obviously there's like there's designers that factor that in to like maybe get that engagement, which then leads to more projects or whatever. But I've never done anything like that.
No, but that's interesting because you're right. It very much is the design bubble. So even like the following you build is very much within that design community, right? And then obviously the algorithm kind of encourages designers, right? So that's kind of what it will be.
Yeah.
So how much does that bleed, do you think, to actual potential prospects, right? I guess it's actually, from what I can see, prospects who care about design or have a link to that design community, rather than completely cold kind of leads. If you like.
I think it's fascinating because I think the algorithms change so much on X over the last like 3 or 4 years. Like you used to, I mean, I don't know, if speaking like me personally, like I've just always kind of just shared my work, and I've just, on top of that, I've always just kind of gave that kind of educational you know, that kind of educational aspect to it as well, of like, here's what I did with this work, you know, which again is kind of led to people contacting me and reaching out to me because they like that aspect of it. You know, like clients will reach out and they'll be like, I really enjoyed how you like kind of spoke through that entire design process, and it almost like, it's almost like a kind of mark of approval for a client to say like, okay, this person can actually do this sort of work. You know, it's like,
like a justification of like expertise.
Basically. Exactly. So it's like, I think if you're sharing your work, just to go back to that, like if you're sharing your work, I think like that educational part of it, like kind of teaching, like, or not even teaching, but like just sharing how you would do something. Because the way I do something, you might do completely different. Like there's more than one way to do something.
It's a perspective, isn't it? It's different.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think like the way that you've learned to do something is maybe I've learned to do it a completely different other way. And I think that is like I think that's like the kind of golden kind of nugget on Twitter, you know, especially if you're given sort of kind of tips and tricks on like design techniques and things like that. I think that's like a big part of it. I think like is if you're kind of open and willing just to kind of share your process and not gatekeeping anything, you know, I think that's like
but it's just being real.
Good thing. Of course.
It's just being organic, right? Because again, you can kind of tell the people who are like, right, I schedule this at 8 o'clock every Monday to do this. Yeah. Tuesday, everything. It's apparent. And everyone, like, I think most people can kind of detect and see it, but just being natural, not careless, but like you're just openly sharing things, looking for feedback on this, or even interacting on other people's things, right? Just giving real feedback as a value exchange.
Of course,
right?
Definitely, 100%. It's because like, you know, that like the person that you might give feedback to, they might share something one day that you'd never know how to do. Like that's what honestly, that's one of the main reasons why I use Twitter, is because like you try and follow these designers who are creating like really good work, really creative stuff, and like I said, like they might come out with these educational kind of like tweets on like how to do a certain thing on a certain design that they've posted, and it's just like a golden kind of technique that you've maybe been needing for like your own project.
Or there's
a
plugin that exists, like you just told me about.
The plugin, that's a perfect example.
Right, like for example, I know it sounds really, really silly, and it's very much a designer thing. You could easily spend like 20-30 minutes on getting this shadow for these complex tabs, right? But then you've got to see that plugin, that beautiful shadows plugin, to go, okay, cool, that gives me a starting point to get these multiple layers to then work with. Exactly. It's a 5-minute task, right? So just silly little things like that. But that's what the design community is for.
Exactly.
Them little nuggets. So if people stop sharing and people aren't, it's just one of them things. But yeah, and what was the other thing I was going to say? So going on to like kind of how that bleeds into potential prospects and leads. Now, my experience obviously within the Twitter space and X space, keen to know what you think on this, is there's a large startup community there from multiple regions, US, Saudi, from my experience, and obviously the European as well market. Now, how do you think startups like to engage with design? Do you think it is I just want this person to be on tap and available on this project, or I want to know how much X costs? Like, what's your experience with how startups engage with someone like yourself?
I mean, like, I think like a lot of the time, from my experience, there's a lot of startups. Well, a lot of startups that reach out to me are usually kind of very early stage. So it's like we need something to go online. We need to like tell a story of like our product or our service or whatever. So, you know, that's usually like my job, to then try and identify the kind of problems that they're trying to achieve and trying to kind of display that on the web. And I think like it's just a very I just try and keep things really simple and just try and kind of identify the problems that they're trying to solve, you know. And I think startups, like for me, like I said, I think you know, I think like I said, it's very early stage startups that reach out to me most of the time, and it's just about identifying kind of what they need, what their needs are, and how you kind of creatively put that out there, you know. I don't think I mean, I don't really work with like a lot of kind of like huge kind of enterprisey clients or anything like that. But I think like, I
don't think it's too dissimilar from what you're saying.
Yeah.
But what's really, really interesting, everything you're saying there really feels consultative to me. Like it really feels like, okay, I want to understand your problem and stuff like that. So that's why I'm kind of keen to know your thoughts on the more transactional engagements of a design subscription. Because there's multiple out there, obviously online. That it very much is like submit a ticket for X, you'll get it within 48 hours, right? And it really loses that kind of that genuine. Okay, I don't know about you, but when I engage with a client, I want to actually truly understand their problems, take them as my own, understand them, and then be able to talk to the person and be able to figure that out. Where I feel like if it's not even getting on a client call, hit subscribe,
it's very
submit
transactional.
the ticket here.
Yeah.
But I've also seen an interest where people actually want to work async. They don't want to get on calls. It's a weird.
Yeah. I mean, I like to go async for the most part. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
interesting.
I don't know. I just think like you can end up spending like an hour or two on a meeting that's where you could have like been in Figma, like working on a problem, part of their problem, like designing part of their website or product. I mean, I think it's down to the person. It's down to the individual, not like yourself. Like I feel like if you like jumping on a call, like and that's what you enjoy rather than being async, then that's absolutely fine. But for me, I don't know. I just like to kind of get on with it. Do
you feel like you need to really explain or justify your process or what you're doing or the outcome you've provided, or do you feel like no, here it is? Like what kind of?
No, like I like to like. I mean, I'll always kind of give continuous updates with whatever I'm working on. Like kind of daily updates, and here's like the Figma file. Here's what I've done today. Here's like some new variations of this web page I'm working on, or product. So I think like you said there, like previously about like the kind of design subscriptions. I think like I like to like make that kind of personal connection with a client and kind of because you might be out of work in a few months or whatever, and they might have some work that you might be helpful for. So you might plug that gap that you might not have work in the future. Versus like completely async, and like there's just like a the design subscription stuff where you can just like literally create a ticket and like I just want you to do this for me right now. It
just feels a bit
doesn't feel personal enough to me. I don't think.
How do you engage with that project as well?
Yeah.
Like
it's fascinating. Like I feel like it's
you need to be wired a certain way, I think.
Yeah, I think like if you enjoy seeing like those tickets come through, I would have major anxiety seeing that.
Yeah, because what's the scope of them tickets?
Yeah,
and what I want a new website.
What I know is like, what if you just don't feel like working on that week?
Yeah, how'd you book a holiday?
You probably need to cancel it.
You probably
the holiday.
Cancel the holiday, not the subscription. Yeah, because also, but the scope of them tickets can be huge. If you've got like an X amount of turnaround time, so all right, I want a new landing page for this. It's got 8 sections of blocks that can do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
One, it's
reliant. Would that be in like one ticket?
I don't know. No, I don't have a clue.
I'd imagine so. Like, what if like what I know is like you kind of reach out to one of the kind of design subscription companies or whatever, and you literally just say, design me a 30-page website.
What's the level?
Yeah, like how do you break that into like tickets? Would that be one ticket?
Or is the submission form like the amount of things you can submit is a limit and it's a multi-select?
Yeah, I suppose it's like a monthly retainer almost, isn't it? Like
it's a monthly retainer, but they've got like a guaranteed turnaround time or something.
Oh, really?
But yeah. So
right.
So imagine if you did have like 10 clients.
Yeah.
Right, or 10 subscriptions, and they decide to be active one week, right? And they all ask for
that sounds like my
I don't know a book a demo page, and you've got 5 of them.
Yeah.
You've got 48 hours. Unless you're giving everyone the same thing, and you've got your own.
Do you think
library?
There's like a template that then you just like put into ChatGPT and say like design this 5 different ways.
I don't know. But then if you look at things like, because obviously Brett does Design Joy, if you look at the whole thing about him versus the Lovable, how he uses Webflow.
I actually never seen anything about it. I remember like I seen like a few tweets about it, but I never like watched that or anything.
Which one? The Webflow one?
Like, yeah.
Webflow versus Lovable thing.
Right, okay. So he designed a website in Lovable compared to someone designing it.
Yeah, so Lovable, the founder of Lovable, I forget his name.
Right.
He went head to head with Brett. And Brett was like, I will be faster and better.
Right. And Webflow.
In Webflow than you are with Lovable.
Oh, right, okay.
So obviously Lovable saw it as an opportunity to go, right, this is a perfect opportunity with someone like high profile where we can go, right,
Yeah.
This is great. But then they had a board on it. I think it was like Hunter and a couple of other people from Off Menu, etc. Had like a whole kind of like, right, what we're gonna like, how we're gonna score this. It's not just based on like a preference thing. It's based on obviously maybe like user experience, how it looks, the behavior, maybe some states. I can't remember the exact kind of criteria, but they went through it. Really, really interesting. And Brett did come out on top. And even if you used to look side by side, it was really impressive what he done.
Right.
I can't remember the time frame. It might have been an hour or 2 hours, or even could have been 45 minutes. Cool. But really, really impressive. But again,
I don't know how you can design in Webflow.
This is the thing. I'm not entirely sure. I didn't watch the entire thing, but just the overall kind of summary.
Just when you said Webflow, there, I was like, Webflow to design. Like, I mean, I know a lot of people use Webflow, but I just could never.
You've got to have the outcome in mind in order to. I don't know if he started with a design before and then built it. I'm unsure.
Yeah.
And how that would work even on a responsive list.
Right. Okay.
I don't know. It was a thing. It's definitely worth looking up though, because it was really, really interesting to see even how close AI is getting. It was scary. But they just released Lovable V2.
Right.
So I've yet to play with that, but I think you can.
Yeah. I played with Lovable. I actually subscribed. I think it was last month or 2 months ago. But it is fascinating how you can just like I feel like I'm still obviously very early on. I've not really messed about with like these kind of like chat prompt kind of design tools, but like it's fascinating. Like this sort of prompts can just write and it'll just like spit out. Like
it's
crazy.
It's incredible.
And it's powerful because I feel like once that's kind of incorporated into like design tools like Figma, and you know, you've maybe got like a design system that you've put together, and you can then manipulate that design system into like a full blown like product just with a few kind of lines of text, you know. I feel like that's kind of crazy.
Yeah. And that's become more and more important, because what you're having to do now with that, I haven't done this in exact detail, is condition the file, how you organize it. So when you import it into something like Lovable, it knows exactly how to read and digest that information to use them elements, right? But if you don't do that, I don't know about you or how much you've played with Lovable, but if you see any of these products made from Lovable, you can tell it's made with Lovable. I'm starting to see now similarities.
Really? Right,
yeah, in the design language, even in some of the color palettes, they'll use this purple, they'll use this blue, how they format the navigation menu, which of course they need to do to kind of standardize like what is good and bad. So there's kind of some standardization there. But yeah, there was something a client sent to me like, I'm building this thing. Can you help me with this? He sent me the link, like the URL, and I was like, this is 100% made with Lovable. I could tell immediately. And I asked him, I was like, yeah, how did you know? And I don't even know how I know. I can just see. So yeah, us as designers having access to stuff like that and then knowing how to use it, again, it probably is going to force the need for us to be organized.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't know. But the attention to detail that is going to be required on each and everything that we do is become increasingly important, as that's the thing that differentiates us to, well, these AI products building,
definitely,
designing everything, right?
Definitely. I think I think you're right. I think design more than ever. I think that's what Dylan, the guy CEO Figma, I was like in his opening statement at Config last week. He's like, design is more. I can't remember the exact quote, but it was something like, you know, design is more important than ever. Like, you know, especially all these kind of like AI tools coming out, and like obviously the kind of additions to the Figma kind of suite, if you like. It's obviously it's our job to kind of use those tools and improve, and you know, kind of, I don't know, it's going to be an interesting few years.
Yeah, it is, but again, kind of the real creatives, the real talent will always show above the average. So the need to be different, or the need for the attention to detail, for example, like all the stuff that you do, is going to become the thing that is, like I said, from the average to the, you know, the gap between average and amazing is going to become bigger rather than kind of bad, average, good. I think the overall average of design standard, I think, would improve massively.
Of course.
As it should, which is good, but I just think then you're kind of like, bad becomes average.
Yeah.
All of a sudden.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know. That's
Be interesting few years, like I said, ahead. I think, I think like with the inclusion of AI is going to just be, it's going to just maximize everyone's kind of ability to just do things. You know, if you were just like like a beginner at you know, just getting into design, I think the barrier of entry I spoke about earlier, I think, you know, you've got these just tools at your fingertips now. You know, like I think, you know, back in the day, Photoshop CS6 I think I used, and it like literally if you tried to like pan to like another frame or whatever, or no, it didn't even have frames. I think you just had like one. Yeah, was it an artboard?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if like on my computer back in the day, if you just panned, like it would take like 5 minutes.
Yeah, there'd be like
you'd have to just go and get a drink and then come back.
Oh, I don't. No, I know. It is, but on all of these things, like again, that difference between like average becoming bad and then that gap between that and great could become bigger. But things like even what you've been working on recently with like these animations, you know, again, these at the moment are nice to haves, which are great. Again, are going to be another point of like differentiation. So how important do you think it is? Because we touched over a bit of food earlier, but the importance of bringing in a bit of animation emotion and making sure it's not too much or oversaturated. Like, what's the balance?
Yeah, I think like we spoke about earlier, I think like that's the tricky part, is like identifying when too much animation is too much animation, you know. I think with animation these days, I think, you know, you just have to do it tastefully. And what does that mean? You know, it's like each and every
preference,
it's preference, and it's and you kind of just have to design with like your own taste, like design how you know, animate how you feel, or how, you know, just like I think we spoke about this earlier as well, when you kind of like design it, like say you're designing something for a client or whatever, and you just know, you kind of know what you've done something really good, and you get that, you can feel like you're leveling up, like you described it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's the exact same feeling you have, or I have personally with like animation stuff. It's like you can quite easily go too far with it, you know, you can quite easily go crazy with it. But I think like overall on top of that, I think like I think you have to, like, at the end of the day, kind of identify what you're trying, like the context. I think you have to identify the context and what that animation's trying to do. You know, is it telling the correct story? Is it doing the right thing for that specific feature in that, you know, bento box grid animation, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes having like as a designer, a limited knowledge on certain things is actually beneficial, rather than you knowing the intricacies, because otherwise you're caught up in a bubble.
Yeah.
When we were speaking earlier about the even need of a copywriter, or even like some kind of like content owner goes, right, okay, we're going to have this section on the homepage which speaks about these features.
Yeah.
The benefits of these features are, I don't know, like this auditing software that we've got that's got this automation, right? You not knowing all the intricacies of this feature is actually a beneficial thing, because if you're doing the marketing side, you're going to be asking the same questions someone has who knows nothing. Yeah. So you're going to go, right, okay, you're going to ask the right question of what does this do? How does this work? You go, okay, I need to.
Thanks a lot of wasted time. I think like you said, sometimes it is beneficial just to like, you don't have to know all the ins and outs. You know, it's like if you can kind of generalize an idea in a kind of short animation.
You create a visual metaphor.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to describe it. It's like a visual metaphor of like what you're trying to say, or what you're trying to do there on like a page, or like a, you know, an illustration. I think, you know, I don't think you have to think too hard about it, as long as it's kind of capturing that kind of general idea of like what it is, and then use animation kind of tastefully to kind of improve that, you know.
It's the balance of that hierarchy, right? It's just like having the content, the space for it, what you're trying to tell, the visual, and then again, it is a bit of a preference, but where that kind of animation emotion should kind of come in, and then the impact that should have. It should sometimes, even some of the stuff you've done recently, can be a subtle. It's like it's an accent to complement it, not trying to look at me. Right?
Exactly. It has to be subtle. Like that's like, well, for me personally, like it has to be kind of, you know, subtly done. It's like it has to be, you know, very tastefully done. It's not in your face, you know. It should just be something that happens quickly on a page. But also, I was going to say there, I think like it shouldn't just be the animation or whatever it is. It shouldn't be the kind of micro interaction that kind of, you know, the copy and everything else has to work with each other. Like everything, you know, it can't just be one thing.
No.
You know, it has to be like the animation, has to be like the copy. Everything just has to like play well with each other. And I think that's a challenge, isn't it? It's like trying to figure that out.
It's the need for a good kind of project or product manager, though. That's the kind of their role and the importance of that, because without that, sometimes designers can have an ego where they can be like, okay, I'm going to use this project to do this kind of style, this thing, and me to showcase all these things.
No.
So therefore, like what we spoke about earlier, I've seen some really good things on Twitter X with all these animations.
Yeah.
So you start animation first, amazing things with this mood board you've created, and then shoehorn it in.
Yeah.
And then for the target audience of that product, well, I don't know where to look. Yeah. Because it's just oversaturated. So it's difficult.
It is, but I think like, I think if you've got the context and you've got like a general idea of what the kind of story you're trying to tell, trying to capture that in a kind of visual metaphor that's subtle and simple. Like I just try and simplify as much as possible when I design stuff like that. I think, you know, some of the kind of complex animations and stuff like that you see, you know, can then be regarded as you're just doing too much. You're just like, you know, you don't have to try that hard. You know, sometimes it can just be very subtle. But yeah, those are definitely the kind of most fun projects.
Yes, it is the most fun, but it's a two-way kind of relationship, right? Because you need to have a partner rather than client, a partner that values that equal to what you do to allow you to have that creative freedom and time to do that. Because if they don't value that, again, that relationship becomes kind of transactional of like, have you built this yet? Right. And that kind of makes you feel a bit like, okay, well, all right, just, you know, you need them to have some kind of understanding. And that can be actually a big problem, especially with kind of like larger enterprises, is simply they may just not know what is required, which is fine.
Yeah.
You know,
it's
so
up to you to kind of educate them.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And especially like larger teams, multiple people, and kind of identifying responsibility, key stakeholders. Oh, okay. Person A would be resourceful for me for this. Person B signs off everything. Person C, so then you kind of, it's your role to kind of, again, kind of consult, educate, and give them what's kind of best. But they need to value that.
Yeah.
But you'd like to think they've engaged with you because they value what you do. Of course. And they're hiring you because you know what you're doing.
Because you know what you're doing. Yeah, of course. And I think that's important. You know, I think that's a luxury of like working with like, you know, startups. I think especially startups in the US, I think they all have that sort of like knowledge of like what designers can do and what sort of kind of like vision that they can bring to their product. You know, it's like startups in the US, they can, you know, they kind of know about animation, they know about like illustrations can help sell a certain feature or whatever. So I think that's like, you know, that's the good part about my job. It's like if you're attracting clients like that, you know they're kind of expecting you to come up with that stuff, you know, like design those certain elements. So it's
and that's a shift I've seen between startup and enterprise. Startup can be a bit more, it depends, because sometimes the founders can be very hands-on and very much like want it this way and that way. And or you get the others like, I'm hiring you. I've noticed it with some of the Saudi partners that we have. There's like, okay, I'm hiring you to do your thing. You do your thing.
Yeah.
So it's it can really, really, really sway. Yeah. But within enterprise, it very much is, and rightly so, because as you work with larger enterprise, making sure you do talk to multiple personnels for justification of everything you're doing. But it can be a lot of hand holding as well. But
I think those are definitely the tough projects. You know, you can have me personally, like I've never enjoyed like design it like this, you know, like
how do you do with guidelines
then? I usually don't really take on projects where I have to like work with other designers' work, you know. I never take on projects like that. No.
Interesting.
Yeah, I like to be there at the beginning. And I like to come in at the beginning and like I've got the kind of creative control over the design decisions, you know. Like it's very hard for me to jump into like another designer's work.
If the designer isn't there and you've got a set of brand guidelines, though, that's different, right? Or not?
No, you're right. Like, if they've already kind of come up with like, you know, a set of brand guidelines and they're saying, right, okay, we need we need something based on this,
Yeah.
then you've definitely got a lot more flexibility and, you know, a lot more kind of creative control on like how that looks from that kind of starting point. But yeah, I don't know. I think like, yeah, I struggle when it's like, here we've designed like a marketing site and we need like 3 extra pages, you know, can you design
Yeah, it
these
feels
3
a bit like
extra
a relay race, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's like pass the baton on kind of thing.
Yeah, I just like, and there's been so much, I've left so much money on the table from that, you know, like, but I don't know, it's just, I just can't, you have to then get in the mind of like what that person was trying to achieve from that original starting point, you know.
It's
and
a psychological kind of thing.
And some people can do it. Some designers can quite easily just jump in and say, right, okay, is that what you've got already? Right, okay, I can design this, and this for you.
It's comfortable design. Yeah. I probably seek a bit.
Whereas I'm like so uncomfortable in that situation.
Discomfort, right? Seeking discomfort, and that's kind of like, yeah, that's where the kind of the creative kind of thing kind of kicks in, right? Where I can be able to do this. And that's a whole another thing with enterprises. Enterprise will have a brand guidelines, right? We've done it this way. We always do this way. We need someone to do this in this way. Even when you have marketers come to you and go, right, we want to do something different. What some people and companies struggle to understand is that you can have a set of brand guidelines, but you can interpret them completely differently.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of like, sometimes when there's a really rigid kind of brief and brand, they can actually be the most exciting ones sometimes, because it's like, I can interpret this in really, really creative ways, but then it's a kind of a question of, as a marketing team, how flexible are you? Do you want to be? Because I can interpret this like all these ways to do something exciting with it and still be brand kind of guideline compliant, but you know, so that could be it can be exciting in its own in its own way. But well, James, thank you for coming on.
Pleasure, mate. Pleasure.
Lovely to have you on, and we'll do it again soon.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I've enjoyed it.
Cheers, likewise. Thank you.